What if I told you the world's biggest pop group wrote their final American hit about their own divorce? A song penned with an empty liquor bottle while legal papers were being signed. An ex-wife forced to sing devastating confessions written by the man who left her, while studio professionals wept behind the glass. ABBA turned Heartbreak into a #1 anthem that changed everything. Stick around, this is the story of the song that tore ABBA apart, but made them legends. The late 1970s should have been ABBA's victory lap. They were the Swedish quartet who'd conquered the world with euphoric melodies and pristine harmonies. Two couples living the pop dream in perfect synchronization. Bjorn Ulvaeus, Agnetha Fältskog, Benny Andersson, and anni-frid Lyngstad. Their intertwined marriages weren't just a romantic detail, they were the brand itself, the foundation of everything ABBA represented to millions of fans worldwide. But behind the sequined costumes and dazzling stage lights, the pressure was mounting. The relentless touring schedule, the endless recording sessions, the crushing weight of maintaining their global success. It was grinding them down. By late 1978, the cracks in the facade were becoming impossible to hide. The Christmas season that year brought no celebration for Bjorn and Agnetha. Instead, it brought separation. Before we continue, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Picture the scene. While fans around the world celebrated the holidays dancing to Dancing Queen and Mamma Mia, one of pop music's most visible couples was quietly falling apart. The official announcement came in January 1979, carefully worded to minimize alarm. The separation was amicable, they assured everyone. The band would continue, nothing would change. But everything had already changed. Within a week of the separation, Bjorn met Nina Kjellesrol. The swiftness of this new relationship would become crucial to understanding what came next. Because while one partner had already found the path forward, the other was left to process the wreckage alone. As ABBA's personal lives fractured, the music industry itself was undergoing a seismic transformation. The disco phenomenon that had dominated the late 1970s was collapsing, particularly in the US. ABBA's 1979 album, Voulez-Vous, had leaned heavily into that sound, but America had never fully embraced it. The timing couldn't have been worse. Meanwhile, Europe was falling under the spell of new wave, the sleek, synthesized sound of bands like The Police and Blondie. The world wanted something different now, something more sophisticated and introspective. The era of pure euphoria was ending, both commercially and personally. ABBA recognized they needed to evolve. Their seventh studio album, Super Trooper, would mark a deliberate pivot away from the disco sound toward mature pop-rock ballads, rich in emotional complexity. But this wasn't just a calculated commercial strategy, it was a necessity. How could they convincingly generate relentless, buoyant euphoria when their personal lives were in ruins? The music had to change because the people themselves had changed. June 2, 1980, Polar Music Studios in Stockholm. Benny Andersson and Bjorn Ulvaeus arrived with a new composition, built around two simple but memorable melody lines. The first backing track they recorded was up-tempo, marked by hand claps and a stiff metrical rhythm. But as they drove home that evening, listening to the playback, they realized something crucial. They had the bones of something important, but they hadn't captured its soul. The song needed to be slower, more dramatic, more deliberate. The tempo shift wasn't about commercial appeal, it was about creating space for the weight of what Bjorn was about to write. The song carried a working title, The Story of My Life. Those 5 words tell you everything about what was coming. This wasn't going to be abstract poetry or universal platitudes. This was going to be a confession. What happened next has become the stuff of legend. Bjorn, who typically writes sober and meticulous, made an exception for this track. He opened a bottle of liquor and let the emotions pour out. By the time he reached the pivotal line about the gods throwing their dice, the bottle was empty. The divorce from Agnetha was finalized just a short time before, and every raw feeling from their 7-year marriage was suddenly on the page. The lyrics required almost no revision. When pain is authentic, it doesn't need polishing. When the song was released, its title was simple and powerful. The winner takes it all.
The winner takes it all.
What Bjorn had created was devastating in its simplicity. He'd taken the complex fragmentation of divorce and converted it into a stark metaphor, a game with winners and losers. The judges decide, the winner takes it all, the loser stands small. But the true brilliance and cruelty of the lyrics wasn't just describing defeat, it was documenting the narrator's learned submission to that defeat. The quiet ceremony of accepting the winner's narrative. The speaker apologizes for feeling bad, acknowledges their lack of self-confidence, accepts the framework they never chose. This was the asymmetry of their divorce made explicit. One partner had already moved on, found replacement happiness, and was clearly the winner in the public eye. The other had to accept the narrative, comply with it, and somehow find a way to live within its boundaries. And there was never any question about who would have to sing it. The recording sessions ran from early June through June 18, 1980, just months after Bjorn and Agnetha's divorce was legally finalized. This timing wasn't coincidental. It was brutally intentional. The song needed to be recorded while the wounds were still fresh, while the emotions were still raw and accessible. Bjorn later admitted there was no real debate about the lead vocal. Those present in the studio felt it almost went without saying that Agnetha would sing it. This wasn't merely about vocal ability. Frida was equally capable technically. This was about narrative necessity. Agnetha's voice carried the weight of reality. Her performance would distinguish this from just another pop ballad and provide the authentic devastation the composition demanded. Agnetha understood what was being asked of her. She was very touched that Bjorn had written a song reflecting their situation, and she welcomed the opportunity to channel genuine emotion into the performance. But the psychological cost was enormous. Standing in that studio, singing lyrics written by the man who had left her about the very situation they were living through, it required a level of professional discipline that bordered on superhuman. Her approach became a survival mechanism. She later described it as acting a part, maintaining control, refusing to let her feelings completely take over. This wasn't coldness. It was the only way to deliver the performance without completely falling apart. She had to transform unbearable personal pain into controlled, resonant sorrow. When she and Frida laid down the final vocals, witnesses saw tears welling up in the eyes of hardened studio professionals. The power of what Agnetha delivered was undeniable. She was performing emotional devastation with surgical precision, not despite her pain, but channeling it into something transcendent. Years later, she would single out The Winner Takes It All as her favorite ABBA track. The deeply personal lyrics and unsurpassed music had transformed her suffering into art. But here's the detail that makes the entire story even more complex: the music video. While Agnetha was delivering one of the most emotionally devastating performances in pop history, the visual representation of the song presented something entirely different. The video featured Agnetha isolated and somber, while also showing the other ABBA members laughing, clinking glasses, appearing relaxed and celebratory. This wasn't accidental. It was a calculated piece of theater. A third layer of performance stacked on top of the already complex relationship between Bjorn's lyrics and Agnetha's delivery. The band was essentially asking the public to hold two contradictory truths simultaneously: the profound grief embedded in every note, and the professional composure that insisted everything was fine. This visual contradiction became its own form of dramatic irony. Viewers watching Bjorn and Agnetha share a toast on screen while hearing lyrics about devastation and defeat created a cognitive dissonance that amplified both the song's power and the band's mythology. It suggested that maintaining the facade required a level of performance that extended far beyond the recording studio. It pervaded every aspect of their public existence. Christine McVie of Fleetwood Mac, another band that famously documented their internal collapse, once described performing Personal Heartbreak as playing out our personal lives in front of thousands of people every night. But ABBA took it further. They weren't just performing the pain, they were simultaneously denying it, creating a public image that insisted on professionalism and unity, even as the lyrics screamed the opposite. This duality speaks to something fundamental about Swedish culture itself: the concept of lagom, The idea that moderation and restraint are virtues runs deep in Swedish identity. ABBA's ability to channel profound melancholia through pristine pop structures, to document devastation while maintaining impeccable musical craftsmanship, was perhaps the most Swedish thing about them. The pain was real, but it would be delivered with control, precision, and unshakable commitment to the performance. July 21, 1980, the single was released as the lead track from Super Trooper, and the public reaction was immediate and overwhelming. The song topped the UK charts, becoming ABBA's 8th #1 hit there. It dominated across Europe, #1 in the Netherlands, Ireland, and Belgium. But the real surprise came from America. The United States had always been ABBA's most resistant market, particularly for their disco material. Yet, The Winner Takes It All broke through, becoming their final top 10 hit in the US, peaking at #8 on the Billboard Hot 100. The dramatic, operatic nature of the track, coupled with the undeniable narrative of the singer's actual divorce, transcended typical chart barriers. The media seized upon the real-world context with predictable fervor. Critics described it as a divorce epic and a brooding minor-keyed confession. The narrative became irresistible. Agnetha forced to sing lyrics penned by the man who'd left her, documenting the collapse of a real marriage in real time. But something unexpected happened in the public consciousness. Rather than diminishing ABBA as gossip fodder, the vulnerability elevated them. Fans stopped seeing them as frivolous pop stars and started viewing them as a kind of family who had been through it all. Validating listeners' own personal traumas through the music, ABBA had become serious artists capable of profound emotional truth. The performance itself became a form of ongoing theater. Every time Agnetha sang those words on stage, she was reliving the heartbreak. She later admitted that every time those words would come on stage, I wanted to go over and kill him. Witnesses described something akin to a meltdown on stage, with vocals breaking under the weight of genuine anguish. Thousands of fans cheered them on every night, completely unaware, or perhaps because of, the genuine pain they were witnessing. The paradox of their success was that it forced them to relive their heartbreak repeatedly, transforming private agony into public spectacle. The album title, Super Trooper, referred to a type of spotlight, but for ABBA, it meant something more profound. Soldiering on through catastrophic turmoil, they were professionals to the core, maintaining the facade even as everything crumbled internally. But The Winner Takes It All was only the first documented divorce. The second rupture came in November 1980 when Benny and Frida separated. Their divorce would be finalized in 1981, and with it came another confessional ballad, When All Is Said and Done, this time with Frida delivering the raw, painful vocals. 2 relationships, 2 devastating songs, 2 years that transformed ABBA from pop royalty into something more complex and enduring. The irony is impossible to ignore. The personal collapse that should have destroyed the band instead provided them with their deepest artistic material. The professional pressure that had frayed their marriages gave them the emotional depth their music had always hinted at, but never fully achieved. The Swedish melancholy that had lurked beneath their euphoric hits could now manifest openly, powerfully, and authentically. Decades later, The Winner Takes It All stands as one of ABBA's most accomplished recordings. Critics recognize it as a monumental combination of supreme craft and bittersweet subtlety. The arrangement is staggeringly complex. Sources cite up to 57 chords in the composition, yet it feels immediate and accessible. In 2006, a British poll voted it Britain's favorite breakup song. That designation reveals how the song's specific, personal origin achieved universal application. It became the definitive breakup anthem of the modern era, a cathartic outlet for countless listeners enduring their own emotional collapses. The song's legacy extended far beyond ABBA's original catalog. It became the inspiration for the Mamma Mia franchise, with Meryl Streep's acclaimed performance in the film reportedly completed in a single take, further cementing its status as a vehicle for dramatic vocal delivery. Artists from Susan Boyle to Cher recorded covers, each finding new emotional depths in Bjorn's composition. Perhaps most telling is how the song's meaning evolved over time. As audiences matured and processed their own life experiences, the lyrics hit with renewed force. The metaphor of the game, the acceptance of defeat, the learned agreement to self-erasure. These themes resonated with the complex, mutual hurt that society and legal processes often flatten into simple narratives of winners and losers. Bjorn has consistently attempted to distance himself from the song's autobiographical origins, insisting it was about the generalized experience of divorce. But critics have noted that the original working title, The Story of My Life, makes this denial difficult to believe. The contradiction between private origin and public generalization is precisely what ensures the song's enduring power. The song that documented ABBA's fracturing didn't tear them apart, it revealed they were already broken. But in documenting that brokenness with unflinching honesty, they created something eternal. Agnetha Fältskog's performance transformed potential gossip into universal art. The emotional vulnerability that should have ended their career instead secured their legacy as pop legends, capable of capturing the deepest human struggles. Sometimes the brightest spotlight illuminates the darkest truths, and sometimes those truths are exactly what the world needs to hear. What part of ABBA's story resonated most with you? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the songs that changed everything.